My dog wants you to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's get to coding. All right, so in this video, we're going to be looking at useReducer and useContext. Now, it's really cool. It's a cool marriage between these two things because useReducer is like that state machine type of thing where we could do stuff and manipulate data that may be too complex for a use state. But sometimes the issue is how do we get that functionality and spread that state to other, components that you have. In a video coming up later, I'm going to be showing you how to do this with an actual custom hook. But in this video, I'm going to show you how to take your reducer and spread it out over your entire application with useContext. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set up the reducer, and then I'm going to get you talking through my mindset, and then we're going to create the context, and then we're going to kind of wrap it up and put it together. So let's get to coding. All right, so now that we have our reducer set up how we would typically like it, what we're going to do now is create the context. And if you remember from the other context video I had, which I recommend checking out, all we're going to do up here is create two kinds of context. One is going to be for the state, and one is going to be for the dispatch. And that is because we don't want anything re-rendering unnecessarily, and also it's a separation of concern. And it's also not a ton of extra work to create a provider for each one down here. So let's get to coding. I'll show you what that looks like, and then we'll discuss it. And let's go. So now that we have that done, let me go ahead and I'll just switch these two here just for consistency's sake. So we have dispatch context and state context. And what we're doing down here, let me rename this because I do like to copy and paste a little too much, is we have the props coming in. We're going to render the children out. That's no surprise, especially if you watch the other video. But we're going to wrap the children coming on in, i.e. everything we're going to put in once we import it into app.js here. And we're going to wrap it with the dispatch context provider and the state context provider. And so this value here is going to be dispatch. And so this is how we're going to kick off all of these cases here when we send those arguments in. And here is just going to be whatever the current state is. Right now it's going to be 1, but we're going to be able to change that later. So the next step we're going to want to do is import this into app.js. I'm sure you could do it index.js. I'm just going to put it in app.js now. You don't even have to do it in app.js, but I'm just going to wrap the entire application because it's so small. And I'm just going to go to app.js and do that here. So yeah, let's get to finishing this part off. And now what I'm going to do in the next step is I'm going to create another kind of component, and I'm going to show you that even though we're wrapping it here, we're going to pass a value directly from context reducer into this other component to show that I don't have to start it in context, move it in app, and then to a new component. I'm just going to go from A to C. And then one thing I'm going to do here actually that I forgot to do, and you don't have to do it, but I think it's good practice. I'm actually going to come into here, and for our cases, rather than use, I think they're called magic strings or magic characters or whatever they're called, I'm going to actually export variables or constants that stand for in place of multiply, add, subtract. So that way we're not retyping the strings all over again. So we have one source of truth. All right, now that we have this set up in here, I do have to import React. But now we have this all set up in here, and it's not imported into our app.js yet, but as you can see, I have a button to click to add 1, subtract 1, and then multiply by 10. So let's go ahead and import this into our app.js and then see if it actually works. All right, so now here comes the moment of truth. I should be able to update in here. So let's do this. Let's add 1. And we can see it's going up. We could subtract and multiply by 10. And we could see that this context right here is being read directly in some component. And I don't even have to do any kind of prop drilling here. This is the power of using a useReducer and useContext. It's a pattern I like. I think y'all should use it. And if you support this content, like, share, subscribe, all the other good jazz. I'll see you in the next video.